try to keep this one simple. We'll do a side profile shot. So we're going to draw an egg for the head. So if you think about the 9x12 board, and this is about the halfway point, probably put an egg shape like that. Since it's a side profile, the chin is going to be here, so you might want to kind of flatten out that bottom, right? So it's an egg where the bottom part has been cut off. Now, from here we're going to draw sort of almost to the end of that chin. Right? Think about if your proportions should be roughly, they should look like that. That's the neck. Right? And this parallelogram. So we're going to draw the torso. Now the torso, we're going to do it in a way so it's kind of turned in 3/4. Now the trick to this is that point and this point are not in the same level. This is her left shoulder. It's going to be higher than her right shoulder. She's going to have a little weight rebalancing. Now from the bottom here, which represents this spot here, okay, it's going to go straight down like that. Okay. You can draw a little bit of that arc. Now, out of her right arm socket, I'm going to just draw a ball there that represents this shoulder. Imagine it's almost like an action figure. Okay. Her ribs go here, 1, 2, 3. See how they change direction? It goes this way and then this way. All right, because we're looking at the shell in 3 dimensions. All right. Imagine this is like a seashell of some sort. All right. All right, those would be kind of the vertices. It comes down like this. So, okay. And then, if you draw this kind of weird W, like that, that represents the under part of the ribs. Now think of the spine that goes from the back of the neck. All right, so these are the kind of lines you should be thinking about as you're drawing. Okay. So this arc that goes from the center of her collarbone comes straight down, straightens out if you have a flat stomach, ends in a belly button, and then comes out of that belly button back down a little bit. This is critical because when you come in here for the ribs and you come in and you draw the hips are, think of a pair of underwear. All right. Or a mannequin part. All right, so you see the socket into the pelvis on that side. This side, it's foreshortened, so that ellipse is much, you're seeing it at a much acute angle, so it almost looks like I don't know what that looks like. It's a very thin O. This is a wider O. Okay. Now this is the easy part. To do the legs, you go from the top part of the hip and drop down a line that kind of curves down towards the center line. Do the other one, and then this one kind of goes out at an angle like this. This one goes straight down. All right. So the weight is on this hip, so the leg has to go straight up and down. The weight is off this hip, and so the leg, so if you're drawing a figure, a full figure, it's smaller. The shoulder's up. This hip is out. All right. That has to go straight up and down. The weight, it goes from that hip to that knee to this ankle to that foot. this leg goes off to the side. There's weight on it, but not as much weight as here, right? And if you want to put her hand on her hip, that's where it would go. Okay. So you can sort of see what we're aiming for. Here's the figure. But I don't know if I want her hand on her hip, so take that back, sorry. The goal is that her ear should be roughly about here, right? Not to the far end, but close to that far end. But draw like a circle there. That circle, if you were to draw like a chin stirrup, whatever, would go like that. Okay. And the front of this represents the eye line. The bottom you could use it as like a end of the nose, right? And a nose at that almost 3/4 angle is going to be a comma with like a line like this, like a little flat pea or a pebble. And at the bottom of this, it's going to arc out, and you're going to basically see that, the fibulum or whatever, that's going to be the top part of her lips. And then this looks like a seagull, this line here, and then just draw a black blob that represents the shadow underneath the lip right here. From the tip of this nose here, do a slight arc up, and you have two kind of arcs that represent eyebrows, and then underneath put the eyes. Now you can put eyes just sort of generically in that shape, but with Wonder Woman I will probably do more almond shaped eyes so that the tear duct here and the high pointed eye are really far apart. So let's just change it. It'll look like she's looking at you, but you can also just draw an eyelid going over that, and now it looks like she's looking down, kind of looking pensively. And then from the midline of her brow go up, that's the widow's peak there. And then from here, draw like a hook, comes down, other side hook that goes down like that. And have the hair have a certain bit of volume around the head. Because it's Wonder Woman, we're going to go ahead and do her tiara. It's going to sort of follow the arcs of her eyebrows and then go up towards that midpoint. So again, that midpoint reflects where that tiara is, and you put a star right there in the middle. Now, from this eyebrow down to that eye, it's an angle like that, and then it kind of flares out to create that cheekbone. You have the chin. If this ear is here, go ahead and draw the inner part of the ear. The way I draw out the ear, you have your circle. There's a big part here, and then out of this big kind of, think of this S shape here, draw like a hook, and that creates a shadow, right? Boom, 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 right? And the way to think of shadows, I was thinking about this yesterday, that's a cast shadow. So if you have a tent, okay, we all know that if light's coming this way, this side of this tent is going to be a gray. But we also know that this tent also casts a shadow, like that, okay? So when you draw the figure, if a muscle is sort of a round tent, you know that this side is going to be rendered, but then this whole shape is also going to cast a shadow like that. So you kind of have to draw both, okay? And they'll come into play like this ear. There's this line, undulation, I don't know, right? This structure casts a shadow like that. And there's another one there. line, but because the light's coming this way, it doesn't cast a shadow. And then there's this part that kind of is the flap over the hole into the ear. You can put the hole there. Earlobe, maybe one line there. That's as much complexity as you want to get to for the ear. Now, from this midpoint, it's the collarbone, goes up to the upper points of the shoulders. Okay. Now, what I've noticed with this is that her head's pretty large compared to her body. Okay. So I have two options. I could either erase the head and redraw it, which might make some of you guys freak out, or I could just beef up what I've got, which will lower all the body parts, but that's okay. All right. So as I go through, I'm going to widen that rib cage a bit over here, pop out that hip some more, and just make her legs. All right. If that leg is much wider, all right. And it's weird, it's not exactly a hourglass. I mean, there is an hourglass element to it, but this point and this point are not the exact same. This arc and this arc aren't exactly the same. So then draw the socket, the shoulder. Muscle is going to be more pronounced. The bicep, more or less a cylindrical tube from this angle, right? All right, and then the other arm goes off. It should probably go into the space here. So from the end of that cylinder, okay, draw a socket that represents the elbow. How do I tell the length of the shoulders? It's to taste, but from this point to this point, this point to this point, this is going to be longer because her upper body is turned in perspective to us. Okay. And then from the ball of her elbow, her forearm, the outer part is going to be more or less straight with a slight bend. The inner side is going to be curved a little bit more. Then put a socket at the end for the wrist. And then we'll just do a pentagram for the fist for now. All right. Draw one kind of cigar digit that represents finger, and then a couple other, think of like roof tiles kind of line there. From this midline, you figure you're gonna draw another sort of the underside of the breasts are gonna kind of go here and here, and at the 3/4, they look, if you're 66, I'm trying to simplify into things that you can kind of remember. All right, it's not a bad way to go. I'm not going to ink it that way, but we're talking about structure at this point. We're all thinking about ways to visualize this three-dimensionally. What I like about this is that I can now then create the top part of her suit that goes like that. And then you come down to the hip. And this midline is super useful. Okay, that's her belt. We already have her shorts. I'm thinking of putting a medallion here, like an ellipse, because it's a circular medallion that's in perspective into the page, right? This would be flat, so that would represent a circle. It's tilted this way, so it's going to be more elliptical like that. Then out of this ellipse, we're going to draw her cape. And this cape, basically, if you draw through the figure, goes like this. We've got to put her gauntlet here. with a star. This is the structure. We're done with the structure. Okay? We're now taking a flat eraser and we're going to go in and run it flat to the paper like this, not like this, not like that, flat. Okay? And apply even pressure on that, and I'm just going to swipe it across. What happens is I'm evenly erasing this figure. I'm not even looking at it. Okay. And the idea is to get this under drawing as light as possible. I'm going to use kind of the basic shapes that I have underneath, but I'm going to really kind of draw on top of it as well, right? So it's not being a slave to the structure. The structure informs the drawing. This is kind of like the blueprint, so I know that I'm not going to run out of space, that her hips are going to go off the page, that everything I've kind of put in is there. Okay, and this will all make modifications and changes. All right, so her eyebrows, I usually start with the eyebrows and the eyes. I'm going to change up that arc a little bit, so it's not so much of an arc. I draw the top part of that eye. The eyelash goes across. I'm just going to do the same effect on both sides. She should be looking like her eyes closed, but looking kind of like our way. If that's a little too tricky, we can erase and do something simpler where you draw on the eye socket and open it up a little bit more. It's a little hard to see what I'm doing here. If I had to blow it up, it would be like this. There's the eye shape, the eyelash shape, and then the eyeball. Okay? And then the eyelashes kind of go off like that. Think of them as like wings on a plane. Okay? Then you come down here, draw the bottom part of the nose, that arc. So what I did there is the arc of the nose, the nostril, the line that represents this, space between the sides of your lips. It's in perspective, so this part of the upper lip is going to be much shorter and curved back than this part. And then from over here, right before I get to that edge, I'm going to turn that shape. That's the bottom part of the lip there. It looks freaky, but that's what this is all about. Okay. Pull out that chin a little bit more than what I had before. And then kind of goes up like that. So normally in the structure, it goes straight up and down. I'm going to add a little bit of skin. Kind of turn that corner a little bit, come down like that. Repencil this in, draw some reflections on the side, the hair. Think of it as a wave. Here's the wave of water. Here's other lines. They should not be parallel. They should kind of move in maybe towards the same spot, meaning don't do it like this. I mean, you can. I think it looks better if they kind of come out of the lines, right? This comes from that point releases both these lines, this line, this arc kind of comes in right there. Same thing here. I'm going to draw out the top part of the ear like it's popping out through the hair. hair goes around the ear. Kind of flatten out the back part of her head a little bit there. From the bottom part of that earlobe, there's a muscle line that goes down to her clavicle here. I just draw that line. Whether we're going to ink it or not, we'll see, but it's a structure line. Remember, we had this elliptical shape. That's going to be her amulet. It's in perspective, so you're going to see the bottom part of the amulet more than the top part. So the top part is just a little bit of a thin line up there. And if you wanted to draw perspective lines, it would look something like that. And that's important because later we're going to amulet there. I had the cape go off before, but the way I'm going to do it now is I'm going to have it dip down. And this represents sort of the valley between her her breasts. So the robe will okay. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. Come back to the top part of the 6 here. We'll put eagle head in between. All right. And then this W shape. This is the way I kind of draw it. She's had different sort of chest symbols over the years. Goes like that. Out of this part, the breast, the edge line goes in, and then to create the sense of weight, the line goes from her armpit down, and then as the breast kind of hits the armor, that line breaks a little bit, right, to indicate support. The shoulder comes out. I usually kind of square it off on this edge, then go around here. So a lot of muscle shapes that I do have straight lines and then curved lines. If you do all curved lines, it can look a little soft and round. If you do all straight lines to do musculature, it can look very kind of graphical. So I kind of mix it up. I'll do a straight line, then an arc, straight line, arc, straight line, arc. Right, so it has both the edginess of a graphic, modern kind of look, but the softness to indicate volume. Shoulders, if this is a straight-on shoulder, this is the neck, clavicle, collarbone, top part of the shoulder. I'll arc it like that, straight line, slight arc, okay, inverted arc, cut in, round shape, arc, straight, arc, straight, well, not straight, arced again. Ball of the thumb there. A line like that. Once you put that line there, you can sort of see the shape that's forming there. Put a line like that, and now this bicep has shape. That line basically splits that form in half. But if you study these lines, look at this arc here, arc, straight line, round, straight, right? Straight, arc, straight, more or less straight, arc. So, straight lines for the bicep. The tricep is, you're going to see the back end of the tricep a little bit, so I'm going to do an arc line, very sort of subtle. All right, straight line for the tip of that elbow. Boom. Kind of follow the structure I had here, but I'm not going to go all the way here. All right, I'm going to stop right there. And then when I get to the parts of the hands, you have 4 balls that represent your knuckles. 1, 2, 3, 4. They kind of follow the contours of that pentagon, that shape that we have. First finger up, bent. Other finger, second finger, fourth finger. This finger, as it's bent in, it forms a Y. I don't know if you can see that Y. You see that Y fold? So there's that Y fold, right? Okay. So rather than doing this palm of the fist as an arc, I go straight down and then cut in. It just feels right to me. And then here's her bracelet. I'm going to put the okay. All right, now the cleavage, just a hint of that. The other side goes up. The shoulder comes, this is the bicep. It's going to be arced a little bit, slightly. Remember this line that I had here? Very important line. It's right here. You miss it, but on here it goes right there. Right. This is the ribcage line. I'm just going to put hints of the ribcage from this bottom part. Draw the center line like hip coming out. It is going to come down a little bit from what I had it before. All right. But more or less kind of following what I was talking about before. The belt goes into the midline like this and like this. You want to keep this distance and this distance consistent. These arced lines are going to be different because it's in perspective. Arc, straight line, arc. Arc, straight line, arc. I think this belt's a little low, but it's alright. I'm gonna have it be. I like shorts that I feel like it's more modern when it cuts across more. In the 80s, trunk lines went up very high on the hips. They tend to be a little lower now. All right, so I'm gonna keep adjusting it. I think I have to move the bottom of the pelvis down a little bit more. So the way to do that is you go back to the belly button, draw that midpoint. The bottom part of the pelvis, you can see that this leg is much wider now, thicker. So what you want to do is come down here, cut it in, and then the leg kind of shoots out from that. Right? These are the hips that we're creating. They go this way and this way, that way and that way. This line goes like this arc goes like this, because it's in perspective, right? Back to this, right? This is a dotted line in here. We can't see that other side. Right? Or maybe you can. It's very thin. That is not a bad case for a nose, a snout. The top part of the robe, go ahead and draw it straight down. All right. And then these lines come off like that. So you're probably wondering why her wrist is out like this, and the idea is that she's just kind of batted away a bullet. So we're going to basically draw bullet holes, just some circles around here, almost like C's, and they're C's because the light source is over here. At the center of the C is where the bullet hits, and this is the impact crater. The shadow is on the that side of the C because the light source is over here. This is a shorthand for drawing bullet holes. Now, they look very straightforward in their pattern, which, you know, when you shoot, it's going to be all sorts of randomness. So I start grouping some of these C's together. So you have a lot more over here. Okay. And then from the impact craters, you're going to have breaks in the plaster, like spider webs or wrinkles, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. And then more sort of impact crater, sort of shattering of the plaster around. So it actually does kind of form spider webs that kind of look like spider webs. Okay. And to indicate that she's just bounced a bullet off her bracelet, maybe we'll even have a cheat and do like a little bit of smoke coming off that. Okay, I also forgot off this hip, draw an arc, a 0 in perspective. Her armor is has structure to it. These kind of rib lines here. So from the center line, draw arcs that kind of go up like this. And you want to be consistent. Do one half, and now you gotta go from the midpoint and do the other half. You have multiple opportunities to fix this drawing, right? In the structure stage, you want to do as much of it there. And this is really a good way to learn, is to take photos of your art, see it at different sizes. You'll see relationship issues with forms and things looking scrunched or not elongated enough. And there's issues with her ribs, which I will adjust when I go to ink. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about light. If the light's coming from this upper left-hand quadrant, right? If the light's coming from there, that means this area is going to be in shadow. All right. Conceptually, everything below this line would be black. This crevice in here would be black. Okay. This form, everything here will be kind of darkened away. So I'll do with the ribcage, and I'm going to adjust it now. Draw the underside of that ribcage, and then the ribs coming out of it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start inking this. I usually start again with where I started with the eyes. I don't draw all the roundness of the eyes. I just put like kind of a couple dots in there to kind of indicate. It looks like the light's bouncing off her iris is. know I'm going a little fast, so I'm going to stop in a second after I draw this tiara. Allow you guys to catch up. Now we'll do the hair. And obviously, I have the pencils there, but I'm also kind of riffing off of it. I'll fill in, especially on the hair, I'll fill in clumps of black with just the marker instead of using a brush. I get impatient. I don't want to wait for the brush to be. There's the ear, the indentations, the shadows. I try to be pretty, I don't know, aggressive, fearless with the marker. You'll see I kind of work it pretty hard. There are others that kind of use it as a tool, and they're very sort of graceful with it, and they really try to hit that line. I like drawing with it more rather than kind of using it as a straight inking tool. It also means I make mistakes. I have to like white it out, which is fine. Almost everything I ink of myself has a ton of white out on it. If you know you have the ability to kind of white it out and fix it, it makes you a little more fearless when it comes to the inking. Not a fan. Not a fan. My kids are fans, though. All right, we're going to ink the robe. So you'll see how I'll even go over the same line, go back and forth like this. If you get good with markers, you can kind of almost hit the same line, but even if I don't, like I just did there, I like that happy accident. It creates undulations in the line that are visually interesting. Okay, here's that amulet that we were talking about before. On the side, we'll put a Greek pattern of some sort. And a reflection on top, second reflection, third reflection, core shadow in the gem. You've got talent, and you're just a kick-ass artist. Like, no one's going to hold you back, dude. So, conversely, if you're not that great of an artist, no one's going to give you work, and no one's, well, no one, not, I shouldn't be so harsh. No one's going to be, no one's not trying to give you work. Unless you don't have the goods, right? But if you have the goods, dude. Who did I know breaking into comics? Absolutely nobody. Well, I did know somebody, but they didn't get me at work. How's that? I knew some people that were working for Marvel and I think mostly DC. I think there was one guy, but he didn't call anyone up to get me a job. I had to fly out and show my work to people at a convention. So over here, I basically took the side of the breast and added a shadow, and then I rendered out of it to create a gray gradient. All right. Someone just, I think you were asking all these other questions about Todd McFarlane, like. All right, let's finish. You'll see that I'm going to deviate a little bit from my pencils, but that's, like I said, you have 3 opportunities to fix your drawing. One is at the most important stage, which is doing your construction, and then when you do your pencils, and then if you ink yourself, even better. And then I even have another step where after it's colored or inked by someone else, I will sometimes chime in and say, hey, I screwed up that head. It's too big. Can you make it smaller by 10%? Sometimes I'll even go to Photoshop, grab the head, isolate it, shrink it down, repost it, and send it over and say like something like this. And my faithful, amazing, super talented colors, Allison Clare, will indulge me. So I screwed up the lines off the torso. They're going to go like this. They're going to have this kind of arc, so here's your opportunity to fix that with me. I think that was probably one of the problems I had with this. I'm basically doing double lines, so where this meets here. But this was correct. That was a triple line. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you're struggling to basically be able to throw a line like this and hit it, or more or less closely, that is it's just practice. 3 to 32. I want to give this away, and then I also want to grab some of the ones that you've done and comment on them in channel. And I think we're going to go ahead and do a raid. Didn't have time yesterday or the wherewithal to do that yesterday. We shall do it today. Endeavor to fix yesterday's mistakes. Draw a little bit of a shadow underneath this bracelet here. As you can see with these reflections, they may look a little crazy to you. All I'm doing with the reflections, the old school way would be to just draw a bunch of parallel lines like this. Okay. New school way is sometimes like this, but then you can also do this, which is like blob, blob, blob. All right. And let's finish up the fist if you guys are all caught up. Here's the one wrist, other wrist, bone. Light sources over here, so that knuckle throws a little shadow here, here, and here. Bring that first finger down a little bit. There's the Y fold. With inking, generally the bottom part of a line, like if this is the top towards the light, this is the bottom. The bottom tends to be thicker, so it's kind of good to go in as you're inking and kind of randomly thicken up some of the lines here. You'll find that you'll get more form, feel more three-dimensional. Okay. I should have penciled these in. I'm drawing them freehand, but I will slow down so you guys can do it. Give her Game of Thrones, Jon Snow cape. That people kind of organize their behavior. I'm going to do the magic lasso of truth down here. Just draw one side, draw the other side, draw a couple more loops behind it. No one's ever going to check to make sure that they all connect up. Don't worry. They don't know. They don't care. There you go. And so there's obviously the Freudian school that people are very familiar with, which is, everything comes from your relationship with your mother and parents, mother and father. There's others that believe There are all these different schools of thought, and and most of them are very kind of fatalistic, meaning once this happens, you are going to probably end up this way, which, you see truth in that. People that are abused early in life tend to be abusers themselves. You see that there's a high correlation of that. But there's this other thing called self-actualization, right? Which is all literally top line. If I had to summarize it, it's about lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps, right? Bootstraps are the straps on your boots. I don't know how you would lift yourself. This sounds very uncoordinated and very dangerous. But the idea is that only you have the power to free yourself of despair or your situation. And so to be ultimately happy, you need to assume responsibility for your life, that what happens to you is not a result of the things around you, the way people treated you or behave around you, or where you might have been born, or what you weren't born into, or whatever. And that, yes, those are all factors. They will definitely weigh on you. I'm going to draw some bullet impact crater holes. All that stuff will weigh in on you, but at the end of the day, hey, it's you that has sole power to figure out a way to make yourself, hey, yeah, certainly your relationship with parents. I mean, look, I'm not trying to discount that all things happen to people. Thank you. Wash your hands. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. Thanks. I don't even know where I was at. So if you want to be an artist, if you want to get better at art, you really are the ones. It's in your hands. And it's not to say that other people can't help you, that sometimes things do happen, like you go bankrupt or all your money's lost in some sort of, your house goes up in a fire. I mean, I'm not so naive to think that, it's, if I just think positively, think great things will happen. But think about it this way. If any of you guys have played World of Warcraft, right? You get objects in the World of Warcraft. You get items, armor, weapons. And that upgrade of a piece of armor or a weapon might only give you a 0.01% chance of getting, improving some stat or ability to unlock some proc or withstand some assault. But all those little things add up and ultimately make you a more badass avatar character. So think about that in life, right? If thinking positively and realizing that if you work hard and have the right attitude, that might only lift your ability to succeed 0.01%. It's the same thing in a game, right? So you would want, why wouldn't you want to upgrade every element of your game? I know. Look, I'm just trying to make it relatable. I don't even know what WoW stands for. All right. Thank you very much, Forever Trill Cajun has subbed, and J1 George as well. Live your life like you're playing WoW. Yeah, there's some truth to that for sure. Right? That's when like Elon Musk was saying, we don't know if we're in a simulation already. And I can understand that, because if you do think about life and the way we're wired, we get bored when things become too easy. Right? So our bodies are hardwired to crave challenge, but if the challenge is too hard, we get defeated and we give up, right? So if you think about a successful game, they almost always have those, but not too hard. And the most fun is like when you barely survive and use all your wits and your abilities and you're able to kind of overcome. And you know, life is kind of like that too. It's just so are the mods basically using things that influence and affect us in real life, or is there something else going on? I don't know. I'm overthinking it. You know, it's having kids like having alts. You're basically logging in, grabbing a bunch of gold, sending it to your alt, send it to your kids. They go ahead and blow it on all this armor that they know they're going to outgrow. All right. Thank you very much, Weisemer, for the cheers. All right, we got 10 minutes left. Start at the bottom where I know it's definitely going to be black. The trick with this is to create blobs of black to create the illusion of shine. The shine's going to be at the top part of the head and less so at the bottom, where it's all going to kind of go to black. I'm going to raise up that hair, and it looked a little flat to me there. Okay, and then we'll get into the robe. Okay. The reflections in the metal here, they're going to basically fall along the high points of the armor, where it basically, what's the point that's closest to us, I guess, would be one way of looking at it. Not always necessarily, but the same way we put shadows on here and here, here and here. Think of this tube shape. The reflections are going to be on the edges like this. Okay. These lines basically represent the same reflections, just on the side of the body. They're this shape here to take into account for the ribs, this shape over here to indicate the underside of the ribs, right? And then when we get to here, I'm going to fill in the hot pants, the shorts, whatever you want to call them, trunks. And you guys go to TwitchCon? That was just recently, right? I was at Alamo City Comic Con. Someday I'll make it to TwitchCon. How long does it take to dry? Depends on where you live and relative humidity. But you can just tell by looking at it. It's glossy when it's wet, matte finish when it's dry. I'm going to put a little bit of a reflection here. I'm not sure how you teach this. You just, it's kind of a graphical shape that you learn to do when you get bored with the lines you're putting down normally, and you go like, oh, that's kind of fun to do something that doesn't look like anything that really exists in real life, but looks good from a design point of view on the page. Some lines just look kind of like they look cool. That's all I can say. Being careful what areas that are wet, I'm going to take back our marker and go back in and render out of some of these lines here. Kind of hiding the fact that they're brushed lines here. Clean up some of them here. Maybe beef up some of these lines. These are just like little refinements here and there that make the finished product look a little slicker, polished, whatever. Okay. Now we'll go back in with the eraser. We can use the corner. And I'm not going to erase everything. I actually like pencil lines kind of being on the page. But to the people that were complaining that things looked a little too gray, it just cleans it up a little bit. But again, like I said, I like kind of the gray tone. Okay. I'm going to take a look online at Discord and see what you guys have created. So as we do this, draw some of the lines kind of through, but really only at the top. If you want a thinner line, you basically put it at a sharper angle, like that, and draw faster. Okay. So if you hit a highlight across each of these segmented lines, it creates more of a Iron Man kind of armor effect. Let me turn this to the screen here.